Well, it wasn't a chicken, but it was a live bird of sorts. Maybe that will satisfy the baseball gods and get Cleveland going on the right track. Maybe if that bird had just stayed in the sky, except for Mike Zunino's at bat, he would have lived. Going on the ground against being on the ground as a bird against the Guardians, as the Worms have found out this year. Bad idea. But maybe the bird dying can help the Guardians live.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I want to take a moment and say this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Also want to say that is our second bird killed in, 2 weeks in baseball. Apparently, this is Stephen King's The Birds. Interesting time. Over there is Justin. I'm Jeff. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. And we do have a new iTunes review, so I did want to go ahead and send a thank you out to Sizemore24, who I feel like has left a review before. I think if you change the review, you sometimes pop up again. Just worried if this team isn't very good. We'll save that for the mailbag, Sizemore24. I want to say this. We spent the last 24 hours, myself included, with a lot of hand wringing and, anger about various choices and decisions. And the great humor / irony of baseball sometimes just presents itself. And there was a subset that were very mad that Gavin Williams wasn't called up and we went with Hunter Gaddis. And as that same subset was very mad when Bo Naylor was sent back down to the minors. And basically, because those two guys stayed here, the Guardians win today because they're the two biggest stars in this one. If you listen to my now, I gave my third star to Gabby Arias. But Gattis, this was another brilliant start for him. He had that one against Oakland. So that's two really strong starts. I still think he's probably a reliever long-term, but good for him in this one. And then for Zunino, he needed that. But I've talked about dude is streaky. So watch, he might go the other way starting at this point on.
Yeah, who knows? We'll take it where you can get him. I think they said after the game he was like 1 for 31 or something like that. So he's got an infield hit and a home run his last two at-bats, whatever. And he threw a runner out. The home run was big. Obviously, the way who knows how things would have turned out, but the way things did end up, it was, the 2-1 run that Arias scored on the wild pitch was enough, sadly. That was the first run of the game. But, yeah, he threw a runner out trying to steal, so that was huge. Definitely needed that. Everything today was pretty much all thumbs up for Zunino.
Coming up, Millhouse.
That one's over my head. That's good.
Simpsons reference.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't watched enough Simpsons. See if they do a prediction on birds or sacrificing birds in baseball. Hunter Gaddis, though, you're right. Good game. Congrats to him. I didn't realize this, which probably should have realized it, but that was his first career win. And I know.
I didn't know until you told me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. And pitcher wins. We know pitcher wins are bogus. It is what it is. But in the 70s and 80s when guys were going, 7, 8, 9 innings regularly, it did mean something because you were the one pitching the whole game. So it was on you or it wasn't. Unless the hitters didn't hit. But any more pitcher wins are obviously stupid. But, it's still good for them when they get the win. It's still, and it wasn't like a win where, he won because the offense bailed him out or because not like a reliever win where you give up a blown save and get a win, the vulture. But still a nice, ball to put on your mantle. It was my first career win. It's a nice little
and token, he changed it up too. That's if you want an encouraging sign for him, this wasn't like what we saw when he was up here last. If you want an encouraging sign for overall development and just working with pitchers, he kind of came up and had a different game plan than we saw when he was up before, which is what you want to see. And we'll get into it later. He wasn't the only pitcher who changed their game plan in this one.
Yes.
And, we talked about making coaching adjustments. This game, we saw the beginning and the end, coaching adjustments, player adjustments. And Gattis was a different usage of his pitches. We've talked about that change ball, the change ball is maybe his best pitch, but he was not using it as much in this one. And for a guy who's had some command issues, he really commanded the fastball tonight.
He commanded the slider really good too. I mean, he threw the slider 6 times, called strikes. That's huge. When you can throw your secondary stuff for strikes, it just makes everything so much better. Guys,
it gives him a legit third pitch, which I mean, I've always said I didn't think he had a third pitch. I didn't think that slider was good enough.
I didn't either. It's gotten better. I mean, I'm still kind of waiting to see the fastball like hit a higher gear, because there was a point last year in AA where he was throwing like 95, 97.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting to see that hit, because he hit 95 tonight for the first time. So I'm still waiting to see a little more on him. But for whatever reason, his fastball worked a little better tonight. Like, guys swung and missed a little more off that. I think it had to do, though, because he was throwing, again, 6 called strikes in the slider, only 1 for the fastball. Because guys were swinging and missing at the fastball, or they were fouling it off. Yeah, he didn't use the changeup as much, although I would probably say that was probably more to a circumstance, because the White Sox had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
was almost
6 right-handers in the lineup. So, he's not going to use the changeup a lot right on right. Although it's good, it's a good enough pitch. Sometimes you get that ball that just goes right in the hitter's bat path, and you do that. So, yeah, if that gives him a third pitch, that's a big deal. And I still think those 3 pitches are enough to make him a solid reliever. Because anymore, I mean, we'll talk about this with Clase. Like, even relievers need more than 2 pitches these days, just with how good hitters get, or just the information you can get off guys. But yeah, super impressive start. Probably the best of Gaddis' career.
I will say what's interesting in this start is that his 4-seam fastball on average was half a mile an hour faster, but his changeup was nearly 1.5 miles faster. And that cutter that has not been a good pitch, he barely threw.
Well, the thing with the cutter and the slider, though, is he says it's the same pitch. They have this pitch that Cleveland teaches a lot of guys. Tanner Burns throws it, and some other guys throw it. Gattis does, and I think Cantillo does too. It's like a hybrid cutter slider where they can manipulate it depending on how hard they want to throw it and where they want to throw it. So it's essentially the same pitch. And I don't think StatCast does a very good job of differentiating it.
It's interesting that his RPMs were up as well, as was his velocity on his, but like he was better.
And he cut his hair. He couldn't do a 99 where he went couldn't grab his hair.
His changeup was up 289 rotations per minute, and the fastball was 147. Like, that doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you consider like 2,000 is good, when you're talking about 150, that's a lot, and that explains why that fastball worked better.
Yeah, if you can get it over 2,200, you're in a better spot.
Yeah, his max was 24 and his min was 2139, so he was sitting 2,200 with that fastball most of the time, which is huge. His average was 2,300, which is not what we've seen all year.
All year it's been below 2,200. That 2,200 mark, I think, sometimes
is important. 2,300, which is again why he's successful.
But I just think throwing that slider for strikes was a big deal for him, because it made them late on the fastball. They had to respect that he could throw the slider for strikes. They had to look for it, and they swung and missed that a lot too. So,
and he threw that
30 spot start
30 times. They didn't have enough data for yearly averages on that pitch. He had 3 starts this year, and he wasn't using that slider at all. So it's almost like a brand new weapon. They don't have any yearly data for it because he wasn't using it. So
that could have been a big deal too. The White Sox may have not seen that slider, because remember, he made his major league debut, or he made his second start of his career last year against them, and it was a disaster. So they just may not have seen that slider. And I think the other thing too with him is he was throwing a few more strikes, I think, and he just wasn't getting into counts where he could use his off-speed stuff. Like, that's the problem. You don't establish the fastball early, and he was throwing some other stuff too. But yeah, good in a spot start, just what you needed. I mean, about as good as you could expect. The White Sox lineup is okay. They're not great. They're good. But really nice for him. And we'll talk about Clase here before we hit to the next segment. But the other thing I want to talk about too is, and I've been saying this all along, I'm not going to, sprain my shoulder or pat myself on the back for this, because I think this is obvious, but the more and more Gabby Arias plays, the more comfortable he looks at the plate. Yep. Like I've said, this is not a guy offensively who can sit for a week and just come in and hit the ball or play well. Like, he's not chasing as much now. He had 2 walks. I know he didn't get a hit tonight, but he had a 107 mile an hour ground out. And I know
he had the hardest ball of the game.
Second
hardest.
No, he had the hardest. It was a 107. It was the hardest of the game.
Okay. I mean, 2 walks is still reaching base twice. And he was able to do enough with his legs to get a run across. So I think it's a highly productive game, no matter how you look at it.
It is, especially for him, because, and I know last couple of weeks we've harped on launch angle, and actually they don't have the launch angle on StatCast about where it was, but it doesn't matter. It was a ground out, so it was bad. It was a bad launch angle. But the fact that you're seeing this guy, and it says it has a 450 expected batting average, so who knows? It's not the greatest for a ball in play, but it's good. But yeah, it just looks like he's more comfortable in his approach when he's playing more often. Whereas Tyler Freeman, I know everyone wants him to play more. I still think he is a guy who can play once a week and still, hit a laser double down the right field line or get a hit or two and play okay. Like, I think his game is just more suited for that. But I think it's good they're finding ways they gave, Naylor the night off because of the hamstring, and he didn't just to give him a blow. They said it wasn't because it was hurting, but just because of the doubleheader and all that. But it's good they're finding ways to get Arias in there because I think he is getting more comfortable offensively. That's a guy who needs to see a lot of pitches and to work on his offensive approach. He doesn't have an approach that allows him to play sparingly. So I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I mean, he is, when you look at what he has done, the 2 home runs stand out, but like he's getting on base. And, it does feel like Friedman can fall out of bed and hit a 108-mile-an-hour line drive that could be a single. Yeah. It's just, he can do that. And I think, again, he could be a solid starter as well. But I think when you look at what Gabby does defensively, I go back to Saturday's game where he threw that great, threw the guy out. Right field. It's like he's got that strong arm. I would love to see him at shortstop just because of the defensive issues there. But I think he is the walks and the power. This team needs power. He might be one of their 4 best power hitters. Might be top 3.
And he's not going to get to it unless he plays more. Yeah. That's the thing. We don't know. The question with him is always, will he get to it? And he's got to play more, I think, to do it. He's not a guy who can just come in and hit the ball over the fence once a week. He's not, and he's not a lefty platoon matcher either. That's the thing that has been his role miscast all year because they don't have a guy like that, but it's just not necessarily the best role. Okay. We got to talk about Clase's Arsenal changes as well. We're going to do our daily base running check-in, some other catcher comments, the Bo Naylor situation, tomorrow's pitching matchups, news on rehabbing and injured guys, all coming up here in just a moment.
So I'm having a lot of fun with one of our sponsors, Sorare. I just set my lineups today. In the last week, I've unlocked Martin Perez, and who's my other unlock? I'm just having a complete shutdown. Mauricio Dubon going. So what's nice about this is you set a lineup 3 games later, you get a reward. You always get 1 card, maybe 2. And it's just fun to collect them and look at them. And I just have a lot of fun as it being low stakes fantasy. You can collect as many cards as you want. They got rid of the max on that. So it's a fun time. I am enjoying Sorare. I look forward to my little unlock every week. So, go check it out for yourself. It's a low stress, fun activity if you like baseball. And then you get little cards. And I remember collecting cards as a kid. That's kind of fun. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards. Set your lineup and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. And as we always say, go check out our old friend, Alex Hooper, who is a Sorare guru.
Absolutely. Go check out that. And then don't forget, on Tuesday night, as you're listening to this, on SiriusXM, you can catch Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus on the hometown call for Guardians and White Sox at 6:10. Okay. Hopefully, Hammy and Rosie will be talking about another Emmanuel Clase save Tuesday night. You and I, and other people have been asking too, what on earth is happening with Emmanuel Clase? So confusing. I've got a funny bit because I was actually at the game tonight, so I've got a funny bit on this from a jersey I saw. But Arsenal tonight, more sliders than cutters. We've been trying to find what is happening with him, and I looked at like his heat map or the pitch kind of graph, and it just seemed like he was throwing more cutters over the plate versus on the outside third of the plate. Like I said, into lefties and outside to righties. But tonight, a very, very different approach, and it worked really good for him.
Yeah, it's, I think he had become predictable. And, it's the same thing we talked about. Hey, apparently the slider is the future to this team's success.
Yeah.
That's the pitch, because that was, again, him throwing that in those situations. And especially after the rough run, it's nice to have a positive outcome with him there. I mean, Steppen was great. Sandlin was great. Henches is still working off the rust. It wasn't ideal there. But I mean, one could argue that Henches had about the roughest performance in the pen and didn't give up an earned run. So that's a net win for sure.
And the only ball he let allow him play was a little, looper too that just got over Jimenez's glove. So it's not like he allowed a hard contact. The walk was the big thing for him. But I mean, when you're a 2-pitch guy like Clase, like he only has, I guess you can technically say he has a 4-seam, but he doesn't throw that often. It's hard as a reliever. I mean, that's why even as a starter, you need 3-pitch. I think as a reliever, you almost do too. But you got to vary. And I think a lot of guys too. I don't know. When you're a reliever, do you think that you're still going to a scouting report on guys? Obviously, like you're not going to throw a sinker to a guy that crushes sinkers, right? But when you're a guy like Clase, who really has 2 pitches, and you're going out there and you're just trying to get 3 or 4 outs at max. How much are you trying to pitch to a scouting report versus, and maybe this is for any pitcher, how much are you trying to go out there and just throw your best stuff? Like the scouting report does matter. Like there are certain areas of the plate you're not going to throw, Luis Robert a cutter or a fastball or something, I guess. But like when you have 2 pitches like that, I guess you're just trying to go out there and throw your best stuff. And often maybe his cutter is his best pitch, but maybe that makes him predictable. And maybe that's why the slider was good. And I think the same reason that the Gattis went with the slider tonight too was the right-handed lineup, but it really worked against the White Sox. So I don't know if that was necessarily in the game plan, but maybe it's something. I don't know how his slider is against lefties. Maybe it's something to consider going forward.
Yeah, it worked tonight. Might as well have something in there that's gonna shake things up. I think it's a good call for him. I do want to take a second before we transition to the rest. I told Justin I was going to do this, and he's like, "Why?" I just want to give a shout out to a Ohio pitcher, Jesse Schultz, who pitched well on the other side. Listen, he's from Arizona originally, but he went to Wright State. Got the lowest bonus I've ever seen. Was $1,000 bonus to San Diego. I've never seen anyone get lower than like $5,000 before. So for that guy to get that bonus, where it's just like, here, you can take $1,000 so we can give that money to someone else, work his tail off and pitch in the majors, good on Jesse Schultz. I'm glad they won. But
was Sean Murphy his catcher at White State?
At points, yes.
Oh wow, look at that.
I believe there would have been overlap. Well, let me change that. I just want to confirm that might be wrong because I'm not sure. He started out at University of Arizona before he transferred over, so I want to see if they. I
don't think anybody's going to go fact checking you on that. Because most people listen to the show aren't going to know that. I didn't know that.
I believe yes. I believe yes.
All right. Well, Jeff's checking that out just to confirm. Let's do our daily base running check-in because we seem to be talking about base running every podcast now because it's a big deal for this team right now because they have to run the bases.
They were the same draft class.
Wow, look at that. Okay, so you probably would have seen him because I know you watched a lot of Sean Murphy when he was in the Wright State, so you would have seen him at some point, I'm sure.
Yep, I was more interested in Ryan Weiss, who Arizona took, and that I don't think that worked out. But easy velocity there.
So Cleveland, they did go for a double steal, and I texted you this. I texted a couple people this. I said Zunino was at the plate, and it was Brennan and Arias on first. Arias was on second, Brennan's on first after he killed that bird. If you didn't understand the cold open and didn't watch the game, Will Brennan hit a little not soft line. It was a hard hit. It was a 100-mile-an-hour ball, so it killed the bird. I didn't see it cleaned it up because I was at the game, but the base hit did kill the bird. So he's on first. Arias is on second. And they didn't double steal with Zunino at the plate. And I was like, why did they not, double steal with Zunino at the plate? That's what I was waiting for. And they finally did it with Straw. And Brennan was still on at second. So, whatever. Or no, was it Rosario? Okay, it looks like I'm looking at the wrong thing. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe it was. Did they give Arias third base? Had to be Arias because Rosario did steal a base. Brennan got caught stealing. All right, whatever it is. Whatever happened to be the issue. So they tried to pull off a double steal, and Will Brennan's knocked down at second. No, because Arias scored the run. All right, I don't know how that got accounted for. Anyway, I thought they did it a bat or two late, but it was good to see. Still didn't run enough. I mean, I guess the guys who were on, Quan was on once, didn't try to steal a base. Rosario was on once. He looks like he did try to steal, and he did. Brennan, yes. Arias, yes. Straw did not get on base. So I guess the guys who got on base that should be stealing, I guess, attempted to, except for Quan. But Quan also got himself picked off. He got doubled off a second. I don't know how that guy, of all people, lost track of how many outs there were in that inning. That was really super goofy. So the double steal didn't work. They did a bat or two late. They got lucky that a wild pitch was thrown and Arias was able to score because they wouldn't have gotten that first run home anyway. But I don't know, I hope the double steal was the right call. I just hope we see more of it.
Yeah, no, I agreed.
All right, well, we still have to talk about the Bo Naylor situation and catching and some other stuff for rehabs in just a moment. I did not have to buy tickets to Monday night's game. I already had them, but you do not need to stress out about buying tickets for any upcoming event in the area. There are lots of comedy shows, concerts. If you're still trying to get Taylor Swift tickets, who knows what you're trying to get right now. I bought Jonas Brothers tickets. I didn't buy Taylor Swift tickets. I didn't go that route. But you can browse with the Game Time app to find upcoming events in your area. They have image views of seats, flash deals, and last-minute tickets on every event, sports, concert, theater, comedy, all those kinds of things. So snag tickets, not the stress of Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. And if you use the code LOCKDOWNMLB, you will get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And then on SiriusXM on Tuesday night, hometown call, Guardians and White Sox. That will be 6:10. Will be Dylan Cease and Logan Allen. That was the matchup last Wednesday. Was the Guardians avoided being swept by the White Sox. Hopefully, it'll be 2 in a row for the White Sox. Or I'm sorry, the Guardians, not the White Sox. In that matchup, they'll do well again. Okay, do you want to talk about some rehab stuff real quick, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I think that's the best way. We got a lot of MASH report, as they say.
Right? Yeah, the MASH report, team injury. So Triston McKenzie and Aaron Civale are both going to go on rehab assignments again this week. Their second time, I believe. Civale is Tuesday as you're listening to this, and then Thursday is going to be McKenzie. So here's the deal. They have an off day Thursday. They don't need a fifth starter again until, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 30th at Baltimore. Triston McKenzie is able to be off the IL by then. He would be on normal rest that day. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be him. I know Anthony said pregame they were talking about wanting to get these guys stretched out. So maybe it could be Hunter Gaddis one more time. I don't know. It won't be Hunter Gaddis more than the next time. I will say that. These two guys are definitely coming back, whether it's whether they do 2 starts or 3 starts in rehab. I'm inclined to think they will do 3, but we'll see how this second rehab start goes. But either way, Hunter Gaddis, we hope for one more good start out of him at the most, and then he's back in AAA, which is why Kevin Williams wasn't added, because if this was the case, because someone's like, the Dodgers are bringing up, Gavin Stone and Bobby Miller. Well, yeah, because Julio Urias is out for weeks. Who knows? And they have somebody else on the IL out for weeks as well. So they didn't have anybody else. They knew there was going to be a long-term injury situation, whereas they knew Civale and McKenzie were coming back. So, yeah. And we can get into the Gavin Williams debate even deeper on Thursday when we talk about the minor leagues. But
and that Dodgers team is already beat to heck. Like just a quick note on their injuries: Walker Buehler, Michael Grove, Dustin May, Ryan Pepiot, Pepio, Julio Urias, JP Fires, and Daniel Hudson, Jimmy Nelson, Alex Reyes had shoulder surgery again. Remember how we
wanted him? Yeah, you and I both wanted Alex
and Blake
Reyes.
Trahan. Like, I mean, I love
Blake Trinan. Yeah,
Trinan. Yeah, like that. Those guys. Like, yeah, they added Fire Eyes and knowing he was hurt, but the rest of that list.
Well, they knew Alex Reyes was hurt too, but yeah, it's a mess.
Didn't he come? I don't think we knew he was going to need another shoulder surgery.
I don't know,
it's still. I mean, they don't have. There's Cleveland's difference is they're 3 guys. One of them we're going to talk about in a moment here. Their 3 guys are all nearing some degree of returning to action.
Yeah, thank goodness. Cody Morris, there was an update on him finally, so he threw a bullpen in Cleveland. The next step for him is kind of to be determined. They don't know if it's going to be as a starter or reliever right now. I would be inclined to say reliever at this point in the season because I know they need starter depth because Peyton Battenfield is now hurt, and your depth in AAA is Gattis, Plesac, and that's about it. We'll see what happens when Civale and McKenzie come back. So I would say probably better off as a reliever. I don't know who you would send down. I mean, I would love to have Cody Morris in the bullpen and maybe send 99 down on a trip to find some super glue or some sunscreen or something.
I think that could be a good role because you're going to have to stretch him out as a starter, and that's going to take even longer. So I think it's relief. I do think, and if you listen to the broadcast, which you didn't because you were at the game, they talked about the role being undefined for him. That they're going to kind of see how it goes. They were comparing it to Garrett Crochet when Crochet was pitching. Is when they started talking about Cody Morris, and that's when Andre brought it up. And no matter what's going to happen, he's going to help this team. I think before his injury, Zips listed him as like, potentially their third best starter going into this year. And what did we talk about yesterday? They have the third lowest amount of strikeouts of any starting pitching staff. What does Cody Morris do? Strike dudes out.
I have loved Cody Morris since, 2018, I think, since he made his first minor league appearance. I was not really following the draft super heavy, so I wasn't knowing him at the time. But first time I saw him, I was super impressed. And he's only gotten better since then. He just hasn't gotten healthier. And again, we've talked about it in the preseason too, just spring training. We said that there was no guarantee that being a reliever keeps him healthy. You just got to manage his usage and, keep an eye on his body and see what happens. But he can definitely help this team no matter what he decides to do. It could be sooner if it's a bullpen role. But I'm excited to see Cody Morris pitch again. He's one of my favorite pitchers in the system for the last several years. It sucks to be still a prospect because he's been around long enough.
It's only due to health.
It is. I know. He's a 26-year-old prospect, which that's wild. Okay, real quick, do you want to get into the catcher comments? Because Bo Naylor was here, and then he was gone, and there's a lot of questions today about Bo Naylor.
Listen, I think it probably says enough about where they kind of view Bo Naylor that, like, yesterday's game, he barely got in them. That they're not – it's very clear they don't – yeah, but, I mean, I think it's clear they don't view him as ready yet. And, Tito was very quick to kind of talk about his issues throwing guys out this year. But
it's been a mix of things with that, I will say, just in the video I've seen. It's been a mix. It's been mechanical. Yeah. Just some of
the pitching too.
Yes, it's been on the pitching as well. So it's half and half, and most times it's pitchers. And look, he's also working with Daniel Norris, and he's working with Jan Romero and just some random dudes, Michael Kelly, although Michael Kelly's been interested. We should talk about him Thursday. You're catching a lot of random dudes in AAA that don't have big league stuff for a reason, or they don't succeed in the big leagues for a reason. So that plays into it. He's releasing the ball a little too late, a little too early, and there's been weird things. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal throwing for him long term. And the question, people talked about, this is what people got mad in Anthony's comments saying like, oh, we don't define him as ready or not because development happens at the big league level or whatever. And people got mad at that, saying it meant nothing, but it does. Like we've talked about it. Big development continues to big league level. Development has continued for Logan Allen, for Tanner Bybee, for all these guys. It continues. You still finish off your development at the big league level. And people are saying, well, he can't develop at the big league level if he's not here. And I agree with that. I think I'm starting to come around to the side that it has less to do with him and has more to do with just trying to see how much longer they can go with Zunino. And my other side of this too is, okay, let's say you decide to jettison Zunino and you just go with Gallagher as the backup and you let Naylor play. If Naylor falters, like look back at Andres Gimenez in 2021. He came here, he had a hot spring training. They tried to put him at shortstop and Rosario in center, so they thought that was the best move. And look, right now it probably would be the best move, although they didn't have Miles Straw at the time. And then they had to send Gimenez back down because he struggled. And he came back in 2022, was a much better player, and now it's, a mess. God only knows there. What if that happens to Bo Naylor? Like, it's one thing to send a shortstop or a second baseman down because you had other options, even though 2021 was an ugly year. If you have, and a lot of guys have to go back to the minors after their first stint in the majors, okay? The good ones, even, too.
I don't think, though, you can make that as the reason. Like, if you're expecting him to fail, I honestly think what we have seen them with Bybee, with Allen, with everyone else, that if they feel that someone's ready to go, they'll call him up. Like, I didn't think they would go to Bybee. I didn't think they'd go to Bybee.
They were forced into that.
I mean, they're not forced into the current situation with Naylor, with his bad as his pitching's been. I mean, I think one could argue that they could be. I think that they think there's stuff to work on there. I legitimately think that there is so much under the hood that we can't measure. Like I talked about last week. I think, it doesn't matter if you've called a guy once or twice. There's a few years ago, there was an attempt, and listen, people bring up that catching ERA stuff. It's junk stats. Like that doesn't matter. But there were some interesting things about like who are good pitch handlers And, like, it was interesting. I think we talked about it. Like you said, I think it was maybe through you. And it's like Sandy Leon and Austin Hedges and all these guys who came through Cleveland that someone tried to quantify. And it turned out like all of them were Cleveland catchers. So there is something that this team quantifies that maybe we can't see, or that I've only seen one person attempt to quantify. And I think if he was ready, he'd be here. I honestly believe that. I don't think it's about like a fear of him not, because if he fails and he goes back down, you're in the same situation you were before. And if you call him up and he's
but if you call him up and you jettison Zunino and you send him down, who's your starting catcher? Cam Gallagher?
Well, no, I don't think you jettison Zunino. I think in that case it's Cam Gallagher who's gone.
And you tell Mike Zunino, guess what? You're playing backup now.
And he'll collect his money. And he knew what he signed up for. This was not a job that was supposed to be the whole year of his. Like, that when he came in, he knew that there was a chance he would lose the job to the rookie.
See, I still think it's a money thing, because even Tito said, because of our payroll, we have to be more patient. And I think they don't want to do it too early in the season where it's not working.
It's also a great excuse.
It is an excuse, but we've seen them do this before. I mean, there's been a lot of times they haven't moved guys because of what they're paying them.
But, at the same time, it's not exactly the same amount, but I mean, they moved on from Plesac in a hurry, even though they're paying him.
Okay, that was years though, and catcher isn't the same as pitching, because
I know, but you
have 5 starters, you only have one catcher, and that catcher is super important.
Like I said, I think
and Plesac wore out his welcome.
Yeah, I think I honestly think if by all their metrics they thought he was ready, with as bad as catching has been in the last month, he would be up, Gallagher would be gone. There's no reason to keep Gallagher, and then. Like I said, Zunino knew that this could come. This was something that I'm sure they talked with him about, and that they would, he'd probably still play versus lefties because that's what he does well. I don't think it's about managing anything. I think it's just like, I think they still, they were dead set on Naylor not being ready, and I don't think May is all of a sudden going to have made him ready.
It's not.
And I know
May is not going to make him ready, but guess what? It doesn't matter. They signed Zunino to not have to have Naylor up this early.
Yes, because they didn't view him. They thought that it was going to take. They didn't want him to be
right. So no matter how good or bad Zunino is, the plan was always not to bring Naylor up this early. Yes. And so there was right. So either that's not saying he's not up because he's not ready. The plan, no matter he could be ready right now, and they wouldn't bring him up anyway.
No, see, I think they would. I honestly think if he was ready, they would. I
don't think they would have signed Zunino if that was the case. If they thought he was ready on May 23rd, if they thought he would be ready on May 23rd to start every day, they wouldn't have signed Zunino.
No, I agree with you. But I think if he was ready now, I think they'd go ahead and make that move. I don't think there's really anything holding him back from cutting Cam Gallagher. I don't think there's anything holding him back from lessening Zunino's playing time. They are paying him, but so what? They can pay him to be in a role that like. He's been in a split role throughout his career. He's in a split role with Tampa.
I don't think there was ever a world where he was going to be out of here before June anyway.
No, but I think, again, like they did not think that that Naylor was going to be like whatever their basic ready is, whatever they want him to be able to do to handle the staff. I think that they don't view it as here yet. And they put such a high standard on what that is, that is why
Zunino's not meeting that standard.
Like I said, I don't. Is it terms of calling a game? Is it in terms of it's all that other stuff that we don't know. It's under the hood.
There's no questioning Bo Naylor's like work ethic or makeup.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so that's not the issue here. No, I don't know. I still think even whenever Naylor's time does come, I could see them sticking with Gallagher as the third string guy. And they're
going to totally run 3 catchers.
Yeah, they'll move David Fry back down, and they'll bring up. But yeah, I still don't see it coming before.
No, it's 100% going to be 3 catchers.
Yeah, I don't see it before the end of June at earliest. Okay, we got to get out of here. Logan Allen, Dylan Cease on Tuesday. George Valera is back on the IL in Columbus. They're hoping it's a minor hamstring strain, but they're still in the process of setting a timeline.
Are he and Aaron Civale long lost brothers? Just because they're both made of glass?
I said in their podcast I do. I'm just worried.
Shout it out so people can find it.
All right. If you like podcasts that just focus on the Guardians minor league system only, it's Guardians of the Future. I usually do it once a week with a rotating cast of hosts. And we just spend, 45 minutes to an hour only talking about the Guardians minor league. So if you want more minor league talk, you can go check out Guardians of the Future. But I said there, I just worry that this is going to be a theme throughout Valera's career, because it has been so far. That's always nothing major. Like the hand-aid surgery is not great, but that's not like a long-term terrible thing. He's never like torn an ACL, knock on wood, anything crazy.
The wrist injuries tend to keep happening. Like that is a reoccurring injury.
But he's always had these little dings and dents throughout his career.
And he's had like 3 wrist injuries, right?
Yeah, 2 hamstrings, a core muscle injury. It's just little things that pop up. I don't know. I just worry that some guys are like that. You know, like Byron Buxton. I know he's had some more devastating ones. Valera hasn't had quite that level, but I just worry that some guys that just happens to. I don't know.
Thank you all for listening. You know, being part of the Locked On Guardians team. I know Sizemore 24, I think we said, is one of our everydayers, because I'm pretty sure, like I said, that's multiple comments.
Sizemore
from
matters.
Him. If you can help us get Grady Sizemore on the show, please DM us. Our DMs are open, at least mine are. Thank you all for listening. Remember, rate and review, and go Guardians. Go. Let's go get some more wins against this White Sox team.
Don't kill more birds.
No more birds. No more animal